time. You were asleep. Time to wake up.
Oh my god, I'm late! Man, that hurt. Hey guys, welcome back to Trench. I mean, the channel. Hi. Welcome back to the channel. Dima don't control us. 21 Pilots have been kicking it since 2009, and yet they still manage to have a fresh and original sound with every single release they put out. Not every artist can say that, hell, most can, but for Tyler Joseph and Josh Dunn of Columbus, Ohio, innovation is commonplace. Pinning an exact style or genre on 21 Pilots is a little tough though, because they take influence from multiple genres, among those being rock, rap, indie pop, electronica, and reggae, among countless others. Like many of you watching, I discovered 21 Pilots first in middle school with House of Gold, but I truly became a fan when they took the world by storm with 2015's Blurryface, which just celebrated its 10th birthday yesterday. Since then, my enjoyment of this band has been something of a slow bloom. I was initially quite hesitant to approach their broader library of music, but the moment I did, game over, man. It was all I listened to. Today we are going to be reviewing every single studio album from 21 Pilots. Whereas the likes of Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, and AJR had me revisiting albums that I hadn't come back to in quite a long time, I feel like I've been pretty consistent in staying up to date with Tyler and Josh's entire catalog of albums. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, because I listen to every 21 Pilots album, so you don't have to. 21 Pilots was formed in 2009 by friends Tyler Joseph, Nick Thomas, and Chris Sally. In December of the same year, the trio would independently release their debut record, 21 Pilots. This is a record that I really had to force myself out of my comfort zone to actually listen to. I've had it on the list for years, and I just kind of never got to it until pretty recently. And what I discovered was some of the band's most ingenious songwriting and creative instrumentation. This is a debut record that can rival the likes of Hybrid Theory or A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, if you ask me. As far as I can tell, Self-Titled didn't release with any promotional singles. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I've been wrong about these things before, but let's talk about some great songs, starting with Implicit Demand for Proof. There are a few things I find really neat about this record. Firstly, I describe Implicit Demand for Proof as a subversion of expectations. The song starts off with a quaint and peaceful piano riff, but it has this amazing gradual lift into a powerful booming statement. And while the song works perfectly fine as an opening track, I think the crazy thing is I can think of several other songs on the record that could work just as well as an opening track. Implicit Demand, Addict with a Pen, and Isle of Flightless Birds all have that staying power and that grand introduction to make a good dent as an opening track. It just goes to show how versatile and flexible this record is. Implicit Demand flows beautifully into the second track of the record, Fall Away. As repetitive as the chorus of this song is, I still find it to be a pretty catchy tune and love Tyler's honest and unpolished vocal performance. On top of that, I love that this song is still being performed on the Clancy tour, or at least that it was on the American leg. I know that there are a lot of die-hard fans that were dying to hear some of these old songs, and it's cool to see those old songs also getting exposed to new fans. I've already mentioned Addict with a Pen in this video, but I want to go a little deeper on why I enjoy it, because it really is deeper than just, I like this song and would make a good opening track. Addict with a Pen takes an interesting approach to analyzing Tyler's relationship with God and religion. To me, it feels like less of a prayer and more of a conversation. On top of that, I think they got the feel of the song exactly right. Instrumentally, Addict makes me feel like I'm floating, a vibe that fits beautifully with the spiritual subject matter of the song. Johnny Boy is another song that I am pretty fond of. For a record without a drummer on it, this song did a pretty convincing job of getting me to believe it contained real drums on it over electronically programmed ones. Johnny Boy features some incredibly good drum-driven pacing, leading to a strong build-up into a catchy chorus. The piano, drums, and vocals are all balanced well and supplement one another nicely. No one element of the song outshines another. Everything gets a fair chance to thrive. And of course, to round out our good songs, let's talk about Isle of Flightless Birds. While this definitely isn't my favorite 21 Pilots closer, it's certainly far from their worst and stands as a pretty satisfying conclusion to Self-Titled. Rhythmically speaking, the song feels carefree and fun, and I don't have that much else to say besides that. It's just a pretty solid song. The only track I'd say I'm not so fond of is Oh Misbeliever, but it's more complicated than just I don't like the song. At its core, I think Oh Misbeliever is a perfectly fine song, but its placement on the track list feels awkward. Following Johnny Boy and preceding Aircatcher, Almost Believer feels like a sudden and brief screeching halt that slightly disrupts the record's pacing for me. While I definitely think that there are better albums in 21 Pilots' catalog, Self-Titled is a pretty remarkable start to their journey, and let's hone in on that word for a second. Start. This was the band's first endeavor into releasing music, and look what we got. A creative album with amazing lyricism, creative instruments, and incredible production, especially when you consider it was made in Tyler's home studio at the time. Self-Titled is an amazing glimpse into 21 Pilots history, but like I said, this is just the start. So let's move on. 21 Pilots' sophomore album, Regional at Best, was released in July of 2011, and this is also the only album that I hadn't listened to before starting this video. Sort of. Let's talk about why Regional at Best is a sort of weird entry in the 21 Pilots catalog. Regional at Best isn't exactly an easy album to listen to. It's unavailable on any streaming services aside from Deezer and Pandora, and since the record has been out of print since 2012, coming into physical copies of it is pretty difficult to say the least. This leaves us listeners to venture to the likes of YouTube to listen to these 14 tracks. On top of that, several songs from Regional at Best were later revitalized and refreshed and remixed for the purposes of sending over to Vessel, the following album. We'll talk about that record later, of course, but I found it sort of hard to avoid bias when talking about Regional at Best for that reason. For the most part, every single one of these songs that eventually would get remixed just sounds so much better on the Vessel version, if you ask me. And because of that, for me, it ends up dragging down Regional at Best. I'm going to do my best to avoid this criticism where I can, though, because at the end of the day, I don't think that would be super fair to Regional at Best, and I don't think it would be an honest criticism if I was judging it based on something that hadn't even come out yet. Okay, with that out of the way, let's actually talk about the content of Regional at Best now. This album marked a significant point in 21 Pilots history, with Nick and Chris leaving the band in exchange for Josh Dun. This, of course, is the first album to feature both of them as the duo that we now know and love. Seeing as Self-Titled contained completely programmed drums, the difference on Regional at Best is pretty noticeable from an instrumentation standpoint, but there is one glaring problem that we need to talk about, which is the mix of these elements. Now take this with a grain of salt, but I don't think Regional at Best was mixed too well. Both drums and vocals, but most primarily drums in this case, end up getting really overshadowed by the rest of the instrumentation to the point where sometimes you can't even understand what the lyrics are of the song. Now, like I said, take all that with a grain of salt, because after over 10 years of being uploaded and re-uploaded to YouTube, I'm sure that there's some weird compression going on, and I'm sure the quality of this audio is not anywhere like it's supposed to be. Now, let's step aside from that for a moment. Let's take a minute to talk about some positive stuff on Regional at Best. Whilst tracks may not have the most consistency when it comes to quality, I think they have a lot of consistency when it comes to tone and just kind of general vibe or feel of the record. Most of these tracks have this cool, ethereal, or like almost spectral feel to them that I find incredibly cool. Ode to Sleep, Kitchen Sink Forest, and so many other tracks have these sick, spacey vocals and harmonies that make them stand out from every other Pilots release. It's really easy to lose yourself in these songs and immerse yourself in the sound of Regional at Best. Once again, this record doesn't have any singles like its predecessor, but there are quite a few songs worth recognizing. For instance, Guns for Hands. Look, you know the song, you love the song, and while this version of Guns for Hands does have an awkward mix, it's certainly a powerful and energetic start to the record. We'll talk more about that track later though. For now, let's talk about Glowing Eyes. Now what I want you to do at home, yes, you, viewer watching this video, put on Glowing Eyes right now, go to YouTube, put it on, and try to not bob your head. Yeah, like right now, go ahead, I'll wait. If you want to pause the video too, that's fine. Just do that now. Alright, did you bob your head? See, I knew you did, and if you said no, I know you're lying, because you bob your head to Glowing Eyes. That's just what we do here. Now, for such a happy-go-lucky feeling song, it's actually quite depressing, but I'm not going to let that stop me from turning this song on and skipping down the boulevard. Glowing Eyes is a bop. Clear, on the other hand, completely blew me away, both as a closing track and as a standalone song. Continuing the atmospheric and ethereal vibes from the rest of Regional at Best, Clear is a grand finish to the record without being over the top. You could also get some heavier guitars and drums on the song and turn it into a very convincing metalcore song, but I do not have any skills needed to do that. I'll let someone else take that on. If there's any Regional Best song that stuck with me though, it has got to be Forest. My first exposure to Forest was on the Clancy NA tour, where I thought my friend Jack was going to explode upon hearing the song begin. And while I don't remember much of the song from that day, I definitely understand now why he was so excited to hear that song. I don't know how Tyler and Josh perfectly managed to capture that atmosphere of being in the forest and put yourself in that headspace, but somehow they managed. Now, as for songs that I wasn't too fond of, thankfully there aren't many. The first one would be Anathema. That's how Google told me to pronounce it. To me, Anathema was pretty distracting and jarring to listen to. The beeping metronome in the background is distracting, and the occasional intrusions of the snare drum for 4 beats really don't help with this. It's just a weird, funky song to listen to. For our second one, and this breaks my heart to say, but Holding On To You. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about these versions so much, but I had to mention it here because Tyler's voice just gets drowned out so hard by the backing instrumentals. It's a shame, but it's not the end of the world because, fortunately, this track got rehashed, so I guess we're okay. And that just about brings us to the end of Regional at Best. If there's one thing you shouldn't take away from this, though, it's any anti-RAB sentiment, because this was still a pretty fun record. At the end of the day, this is still a 21 Pilots record, so we've got a certain bar of quality we're hitting, and even their lowest album I wouldn't put under like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. If you're like me and you haven't given this album a fair, honest shot, I heavily encourage you to do so, because I think you're going to find something that you really like. 21 Pilots' major label debut, Vessel, released in January of 2013, a statistic that makes me feel really old and wrinkly. This one is also pretty commonly regarded as their best album, and while I'm not going to say whether or not I agree with that just yet, I definitely think there's good reason for it. This is one solid record. Like I mentioned, Vessel was 21 Pilots' first record with major label Fueled by Ramen, a rite of passage for emo and alternative artists alike. Chances are, if you like 21 Pilots, you've heard a lot of these artists too. To this point, Vessel shines as one of 21 Pilots' most consistent pieces of work. From front to back, the record is paced perfectly and produced creatively, and with a label backing them, wasted no time in reaching a more mainstream audience than they had before. This is the album that, in my mind, really blew up 21 Pilots and put them on the map. Vessel was also the first album, as far as I know, to contain actual promotional singles. 2 singles, Holding On To You and Guns for Hands, were released prior to the album, with the other 3, House of Gold, Fake You Out, and Car Radio, becoming singles after the record's release and surge of popularity. I know I dug into Holding On To You pretty viciously in RAB, but I do want to give it massive praise this time around. Holding On To You has been in the running for a long time to be one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs, and while it might not hold that title anymore, it's still one I have a really strong attachment to. This is one of the only rap songs I can do front to back from memory, making it a staple of any karaoke session I attend. It's a weird sentence. I don't go to karaoke that much. Guns for Hands is another track on RAB that got a massive upgrade with Vessel. Tyler's vocals are much cleaner, and its placement on the later end of the record serves as a nice ramp up into Vessel's close. I didn't mention Car Radio when I was talking about RAB, but I'd be doing a major disservice to the artist and to the community if I didn't bring it up in this portion of the video. When I think of 21 Pilots, Car Radio is one of the first songs that comes to mind. It is a staple song of 21 Pilots' discography. It's such a defining song, not just for their career and sound, but for their audience. By now, we're obviously no strangers to depressing songs about mental health and loneliness, and Car Radio is an introspective look into those ideas, taking a very honest analysis of the silences that our minds experience. Migraine is another song I have to give a shout out to, an original song for Vessel. And what's so crazy to me about this song is it sounds like it's a back and forth when it's actually just one person singing. Tyler's flow on the song is insanely impressive. If anyone's song from Regional Best got a glow up it deserved, however, it has got to be Trees. Look, the Optimus Prime voice filter was kind of interesting, but I found it to be way more distracting than it was immersive. This version of the song is generic enough to appeal to a wider audience, but still stays true to Vessel's sound and tone. I also love that this is always the final song of a formal 21 Pilots show, and I can't think of many better songs to end a concert with. And of course, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't mention House of Gold. While this isn't a song I find myself going back to incredibly frequently, it holds a very special spot in my heart because it's my mom's favorite 21 Pilots song. Whether she was folding laundry, doing yard work, or just hanging out, my mom almost always had music going, and she's responsible for a lot of my current tastes and preferences in music. As for the songs I'm not so crazy for, let's start with Ode to Sleep. Now, I don't think this is a horrible song, but I do think it's actually my least favorite 21 Pilots opening tracks on any record. Yes, that includes Good Day. The big thing for me is the pacing of this song. I feel like Ode to Sleep is always feeling like it's dragging, or it's overstaying its welcome. Truce is another song that I've never been able to get behind, both as a standalone song or as a closer. If Vessel ended right with Trees, I think that would have been perfectly fine. Truce just sort of feels tacked onto the end. And for the one that I think will turn heads, Fake You Out. I never got the hype on this song, so maybe some of the clique out there can help me understand just why the song is so popular. Overall, I find Fake You Out to be a pretty boring track instrumentally, and I'd rather put on pretty much any other song from Vessel than this one. Vessel feels like a spark. This album set off a fire that would fuel 21 Pilots into global levels of fame. While that momentum was hot though, they decided to put out their most influential album yet. More on that in a moment, but first let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. Oh, hey, how's it going? If you're liking this video, first of all, thank you. But secondly, I think you might enjoy my 24-hour charity stream, which is taking place on Saturday, June 7th at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be raising money for the Pride Center of Western New York with an ultimate goal of raising $1,500, and if we raise enough money along the way, you guys are going to be able to choose the next video in this series, whatever artist you guys want. If you're interested in that, make sure you tune in to the 24-hour charity stream starting at noon on Saturday, June 7th. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. 21 Pilots' fourth album, Blurryface, was released in May of 2015. Whether you like it or not, you have heard a few songs from this record. I don't think I'll offend anyone by saying that this is 21 Pilots' most popular album, by a long shot. With literal billions of streams across his 14 songs, Blurryface skyrocketed Tyler and Josh to new levels of popularity. 21 Pilots became an international phenomenon in what felt to me like overnight. The Blurryface aesthetic was everywhere you looked, certain songs were unavoidable, this was arguably the band's most iconic era to date. Popularity, of course, does not always equate to quality, and in this case I do feel like Blurryface is a pretty massive step down from the likes of Vessel. This record features some of the band's highest highs, but also shares it with some of their lowest lows. And that's just my opinion. If you feel differently, totally fine. One thing I do love about Blurryface though is the lore it created. This record introduced us to the character of Blurryface, personified by Tyler Joseph himself, and began a multi-year story that's still going on to this day. We'll touch more on that later, of course, but I love me a good underlying story with my music, so it's cool to see the seeds planted here. Blurryface contains a handful of singles. Fairly Local, Tear in My Heart, Stressed Out, and Lane Boy were released prior to Blurryface, whereas Ride and Heavy Dirty Soul were made singles after the fact. Heavy Dirty Soul is a good place to start, seeing as it's the first song on the record. We take a pretty tall step up from Ode to Sleep in this instance, with a blood-pumping, adrenaline-fueled track to introduce us to Blurryface. One thing I also love about Heavy Dirty Soul is how it gets incorporated into live performances. There's always some creative transition to segue into it. I don't know. It just tickles my brain right. Fairly Local, on the other hand, is an intro to the new era entirely. I think specifically the music video in this instance, and how stark the differences are in imagery between this and anything from Vessel. Fairly Local brings a completely new and fresh sound to 21 Pilots, and while it's nowhere near most popular on the album, I think the song was an excellent choice to introduce us into a new era. While it's a slower song than Heavy Dirty Soul, it still packs that same powerful punch you need to kickstart a new project like this. In terms of more popular songs though, let's talk about Tear in My Heart, another song you probably heard on your car radio before you sat in silence. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I'm a sucker for a cheeky love song, and this one's no exception. It's a nice break from the more bleak and somber elements of Blurryface, but also doesn't feel like it disrupts any pacing or theming on the record. I also don't think I ever realized just how popular of a song The Judge is until pretty recently, but it's been a staple of my Pilots rotation for the last few years. While it's got a seemingly happy and carefree tone to it, there's quite a bit of darker subtext on this song, and what I find most interesting is the many ways in which the song can be interpreted. You can see the song as coming from Tyler's perspective, or Blurryface's, each one pleading for something completely different. Music has always been about interpretation to me. It's cool that you can find meaning in a song, and someone else can find something completely different to interpret from it. It blows my mind hearing like a new perspective on a song every single time. Let's talk about a song that doesn't nearly get enough recognition, however. Hometown. Wholly underrated Batman, I do not see nearly enough hometown heroes on the timeline. I think the song has got to feature one of my favorite instrumental tracks on any Pilot song, and with a legendary drum-filled release into the close of the song, how can you not love it? And now, of course, let's talk about the song that is on everybody's minds right now. Doubt is a song that I've been a huge fan of long before the demo went crazy viral. And while I'm not usually one to enjoy weird vocal filters and distortions, I do love the crazy manipulation of Tyler's voice for this song. It adds a lot more depth and energy to the chorus than if he was just to sustain a single note or do the ah himself. If we do end up getting a Blurryface 10-year anniversary tour, I would go single-handedly just for this song. Well, I would go for Fairly Local, too. I would stay for the whole thing. I would get my money's worth out of my ticket, but if they said, hey, we're playing Doubt, and that's the only song we're playing tonight, I would be there. Like I said, however, Blurryface is lacking a lot of the consistency that Vessel had. If you ask me, there are a good chunk of dead moments across Blurryface, starting with Message Man. I think if I had to describe Message Man in one word, it would be uninteresting. Nothing really excites me on this song. Tyler has a sort of cool flow in the chorus, but the verses, bridge, and Josh's drums just don't really do much for me on this track. As for a nuclear hot take, Lane Boy is another song that I've never been a massive fan of. I'll at least say that it's grown on me over the last year, because I do enjoy the guitar on this song, and the chorus certainly isn't the worst I've heard, but 9 times out of 10, I'm not going out of my way to put this song on. And whereas I'm more unenthused when it comes to Lane Boy and Message Man, Polarized is a song that I cannot stand no matter what. I really, really do not like this song. I never have, and I don't think I ever will. Polarized is a song that's always just annoyed me, both the verses and the chorus. I think it's something about Tyler's voice, but I can't pinpoint exactly what I dislike about it. Either way, you will not catch me in the pit to this song. Finally, let's talk about the songs that are making up over 4 billion of this album's streams. Stressed Out and Ride. Now, to be clear, most of my distaste for Stressed Out really comes from how overplayed it is. I mean, you and I could not escape the song in 2015. It was unavoidable. I can't say the exact same for Ride. I find the second half of the song to be forgettable at best and annoying at worst. It feels like they were going for that same regional at best spaciness with the I've been thinking too much line, but I find it more obnoxious than anything. Usually once I get past that second chorus, it's a skip. With the end of the Blurryface era in 2017, 21 Pilots embarked on a year-long hiatus. For that whole period, it was radio silence. Until it was time to wake up. 21 Pilots' year-long hiatus came to an end in July of 2018 with the release of 2 singles and announcement of their 5th record, Trench, which was slated for an October 2018 release. At one point, I considered Trench to be my favorite 21 Pilots album of all time. And today I want to take a closer look at that because I think things might have shifted over the last few years. Trench continues the lore started by Blurryface, although it takes it to a more blatant approach in its storytelling. We're introduced to Clancy as our main character and the continent of Trench where everything takes place. Within Trench is a city called Dima, which is ruled by 9 oppressive bishops, one of which is named Nico, aka Blurryface. Dima is planning to be overthrown by a group of rebels called the Banditos, who wear yellow as their colors. Trench tells the story of Dima's oppression and the Banditos' uprising. And just as a quick heads up, that was a very SparkNotes level catch up on the lore for this album. I don't know it that closely. There's a lot more than meets the eye. Danny Green made an awesome video covering the entire story, and I strongly recommend you go check that out after you finish this video. That's going to be linked in the description. Trench has several singles on it. Jumpsuit, Nico and the Niners, Levitate, and My Blood were released to promote the album, with Chlorine and The Hype becoming singles later on. If any of these songs stand out to me, it's Jumpsuit, also known as my favorite 21 Pilots song of all time. If you ask me, this is the perfect song and video to launch us into the world of Trench. I love how dirty and pulsing the bass is, not to mention how frequently Josh's drumming varies between halftime and regular speed. Tyler's scream at the end is also pretty sick. I wish he would do this on more tracks. My Blood is another no-brainer choice for singles. I had a brief phase of not loving the song, but I'm happy to say I'm a reformed My Blood enjoyer now. Once again, we've got a grimy, dirty bass line from Tyler that drives the song forward with some fun drum fills coming from Josh's end. My Blood also features one of my favorite choruses as far as Tyler's vocal performances go. I don't know if groovy is the right word, but that's what I'm going to go with for now. The Hype is yet another track I'm fond of, and one that I'm happy got as popular as it has. Sometimes we can all use a bit of a pick-me-up, a bit of reassurance that we're going to make it through whatever crap we're going through. The Hype is great in that regard, encouraging each and every one of us to keep on keeping on. Even without that message though, sometimes it's nice to just know that people are going through the same thing. Sometimes that in itself is a comfort. In terms of laid-back reserved songs, Smithereens is a song that never fails to surprise me. Once again, it feels like a callback to R.A.B. with the ethereal, spacey feel, with these weird fluty flourishes after each chorus. And to nobody's surprise, I'm gravitating towards the lovey-dovey song, but Smithereens feels really special. And finally, let's talk about Leave the City, a song that I have historically always rode the fence over. I cannot decide if I like or don't like this song. Hell, Leave the City was initially in the songs I don't like category for this video until literally today when I turned on the camera. While there are moments that I'm not as fond of with this song, such as its pacing, I think the positives outshine the negatives. I love the lore implications that the song has on Clancy, especially given what we come to learn in the future. On top of that, the harmonies on this song hit different, man. Each escalated in time, I Will Leave the City sends a new wave of chills through me. While Trench is for sure a more consistent listen than Blurryface, I think it still has its fair share of odd moments sticking out like sore thumbs. One of these for me is Cut My Lip. Cut My Lip sort of bores me, to be honest, but maybe that's not so constructive on its own. I think it has a good drop in the chorus and the lead up to the chorus, but the verses don't really do much to keep me engaged. Morph and Chlorine, on the other hand, while I think they're fan favorite songs, have never done much for me. They've never been at the top of my tier lists. At the very least, Morph has a pretty cool lyrical flow from Tyler, and Chlorine has a catchy chorus, so I can at least find something positive to say about each of them. And as the Trench era came to a close, the world shut down. We were all left in lockdown, isolated from one another, from our favorite bands. I think Josh and Tyler knew that. Well, of course they knew it was COVID. And in April of that year, they gave us Level of Concern. I didn't really know where to put this in the video given it's a standalone single, but I had to mention this because it was probably my favorite song to come out of 2020. Even now that we're out of the pandemic, Level of Concern is one of those go-to pick-me-up songs for when the going gets rough, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. There's just something so reassuring when Tyler shouts "We'll be okay" right at the end of the song. I don't know. It always makes me weirdly emotional. Anyways, as the world began to slowly open back up, 21 Pilots began gearing up for a new cycle, a new era, a new tour back with their clique. Little did we know this would be their most controversial release yet. Scaled and Icy, 21 Pilots' sixth album, released in May of 2021. The album featured a pretty big departure from the sound they'd established on Trench, focusing on a more pop-driven sound. On the surface, Scaled and Icy also made a pretty big departure from the lore of Clancy and Dima, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. We'll talk about that later. If you were to ask a 21 Pilots fan, hey, what is your favorite 21 Pilots album? Chances are it's not going to be this one. There's a vocal minority out there that loves this album, but I think for the majority of us, it was sort of a miss. Nevertheless, Scaled and Icy has its fair share of pleasant and fun moments on it, so I promise I'm going to go in with an open mind and judge it fairly. Scaled and Icy has 4 singles: Shy Away, Choker, Saturday, and The Outside. It's a decent choice if you ask me. They worked with what they had, it turned out fine. Of those singles, Shy Away is the crown jewel of Scaled and Icy. There isn't another track that could have been the lead single for this album. Shy Away is inspiring and bright, and I find it to be pretty encouraging in the sense of not backing away from your aspirations. Saturday, on the other hand, is sort of a weird song. It doesn't sound very 21 Pilots at all. When this album came out, I saw someone on Twitter describe it as if 21 Pilots made a song for an Old Navy commercial. I haven't been able to get that out of my head. If anyone has that tweet, by the way, send it to me. I've been looking and I cannot find it to save my life. But yeah, I get it. It sounds like it belongs in an Old Navy commercial. Either way though, it's a song I really love, and apparently I like it even more than Tyler does. You can call it a guilty pleasure if you want, but I think it's kind of a bop. I don't know. If there's any song that's actually undeniably a guilty pleasure for me though, yeah, it's Good Day. I love this song so much. Good Day is so cheesy and on the nose, but damn it, I love it, okay? This is a contagiously positive song that never fails to put me in a good mood or make me reminisce about happy memories. That being said, I can definitely see how fans of 21 Pilots' past work could start with this song on the record and be completely turned off to the rest of it. It's a pretty harsh left turn from anything else they've ever done, and Good Day isn't for everyone. I get that. Let's talk about the actual best song on Scaled and Icy though. The one you're all sleeping on, the collarful of 21 Pilots, as it were. Formidable. Wow, Dawn likes another love song. How original. How daring. Yeah, I know. Okay, chill out. Generally though, this song is a bop. Formidable is so underrated, and I think it's about time we start giving this song the love it deserves. Formidable never fails to get me singing along, bopping my head, or dancing whenever it comes on. It's so contagiously positive. As for the songs that I'm not in love with, okay, well there's only 4, but that sort of feels like a big number in comparison to how this video has been going, so it feels a little off-putting, I don't know. To me, Scaled and Icy is such a letdown because it failed to be memorable. Now, I don't expect every single song to be a Stressed Out or a Riot or a Heathens, Shudder, but most of these songs don't have any staying power whatsoever. They don't feel like they would make a meaningful dent in any playlist I created. Bounce Man, Mulberry Street, and No Chances are at the top of that list, but I think of those 3, No Chances by far has the worst. Now, I at least have some idea of how the melodies of Bounce Man and Mulberry Street go, but I can't say the same for No Chances. I've listened to it now a handful of times for the purposes of this video, and I legit still cannot tell you how the song goes. No matter how many times I listen to No Chances, it doesn't stick with me. Now that being said, the potential lore implications of the song, the themes of No Escape as commanded by the bishops, are haunting to say the least, so that's something positive I can say about it. I've also always found The Outside to be a pretty unremarkable song, especially for a single. I really wish we got some more Josh Dun action on this song. I think he takes a pretty reserved role for the majority of it. That being said, it's not horrible. I don't think it's completely worthy of a skip. If I'm listening to the album front to back, I'll usually listen to this whole song. Now, like I said at the start of this section, on the surface, not much was happening with the lore. Tyler even mentioned this during a virtual interview, I believe, where they weren't sure how to proceed with the lore during COVID because so much of the story they want to tell ties into their live experience. Scale Nicey could even be rearranged to spell out Clancy is dead, a symbol that, at the time, I assume meant that that era and that story was completely over. But I couldn't be more wrong. Little details slowly became apparent. Fans started receiving letters in the mail, links to confidential documents, and all of that made one thing abundantly clear. It was time to go back to Dima. In early 2024, 21 Pilots albums on streaming services became covered with a strip of red tape hinting at the start of a new era. With the release of a new song came the announcement of Clancy, the 7th album to be released in May of that year. This of course saw us returning to the world of Trench with a more blatant and obvious format, with Clancy and the Banditos preparing their uprising against the Bishops. For an album called Clancy though, it sort of feels like it's missing a bit of, well, Clancy. There haven't been that many direct advances in the story that Tyler and Josh have been telling over the last 10 years, which is sort of a minor letdown for me. On the other hand, of course, there are a lot of things happening outside of that record, you know, digital documents and things like that. So I haven't dived into that myself. Maybe it's on me to kind of hold myself more accountable in that regard. Either way, the music of Clancy is pretty solid, and it's safe to say Clancy is a massive step up from Scale Nicey. It really does feel like that meme of we've never been so back. Starting with the 4 singles from the record, Overcompensate, Next Semester, Backslide, and The Craving. Now I could talk for quite a bit on Overcompensate because I think it's one of their best singles they've ever used to promote a record. There's a good reason the song ended up as one of my top songs of 2024. If you want to engross your fan base back into the lore of Clancy and Dima, this is a pretty knockout way to do it. Tyler's flow is great, Josh's drumming is impressive as always, world peace has been achieved because of Overcompensate. Next Semester is a perfect follow-up as an upbeat moshy song. I feel like I haven't heard anything like this from 21 Pilots before, and while it did take me a while to warm up to it, I gotta say, I love this one now. Picking a song off of any record is difficult, and Clancy is no exception to that rule, but gun to my head, if I had to pick one, I think it would be Navigating. Navigating feels like it could have been a B-side off of Trench with some aggressive guitar riffs and high-octane drums fueling the entire song. I feel like I should be driving an F1 car or sprinting in a marathon while I listen to this song. I love the energy that Navigating brings to Clancy. Routines in the Night is also up there as a top song from Clancy. Next to Overcompensate, this is probably the one I've gone out of my way to listen to the most. I like that the song feels kind of sinister and dark, and it really brings that nighttime theming to life. And while I don't like Jimmy Fallon that much, I do love their performance on The Tonight Show, so that's something. Similarly to My Blood, I used to be a Midwest Indigo hater, but thankfully, I'm reformed. I love the fast, almost punky drums from Josh's end, as well as the shouted lines right before each chorus. I'd love to see a Pop Ghost Punk version of the song because I can think of a few bands who would knock this one out of the park. Oldie Station is a fan favorite song, but it took me way longer than I care to admit to hop on this bandwagon. I think what really did it for me was seeing it live and just seeing the audience reaction to it. It was really beautiful. The passage of time and growth is sometimes a pretty hard thing to cope with because it's so easy for us to focus on the things we've lost in that time. However, the beautiful thing is we're also able to gain so much in that time as well. To me, Oldie Station means coming to accept moving on from the past, but also welcoming what else comes to you. And of course, I would be doing a disservice if I did not mention Paladin Straight, because in my opinion, this is the best closing track they've ever made. I love the cheesy Linkin Park music video, I love the dark lore implications of Clancy's capture, I love the live experience, everything about this song is perfect. Almost. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Now, talking about the low moments of Clancy is sort of difficult for a few reasons. Firstly, there just aren't that many low moments. From pacing to quality, anything in between, Clancy thrives when it comes to making a consistent record. Clancy is a record of highs that are incredibly high, alongside lows that are still really high. How does that happen? Backslide, for instance, has always been my least favorite single, but it's really grown on me over the last year with its raw lyrics and Tyler's live scream. Lavish is an incredibly corny song with some of its lyrics, but I've come to realize that this is definitely the point of the song. It's not meant to be taken so seriously. It's okay to have fun with it. And while I find the backing instrumental for At the Risk of Feeling Dumb to be a bit distracting, I love the message the song is sending, because we can always use another reminder to check in on our friends. Let's circle back to that small issue though. Clancy feels incomplete as a story. Paladin Strait ends on the biggest cliffhanger imaginable, leading to the theory of the Clancy double album. If you're unfamiliar, there's a theory, or a set of theories in this case, in the 21 Pilots community that Clancy is going to be a double album, in which the second half covers more of the conflict with the bishops as we were expecting. Now, I'm refusing to get any hopes up for this, because if I get my hopes up to the ceiling, and then it's just not a thing that's happening, I'm going to be crushed for the rest of my life. But, if you want to look into this more... Whatever happened to Not a Sound on Wednesday, Tyler and Josh? I initially wasn't planning on including this, but it's here now, so I guess we're gonna really quickly talk about it. To all you double album truthers, thank you for willing this into existence. I had no hope for this whatsoever. Either way, Breach is gonna be here sometime in September. So yeah, I guess we'll have that to look forward to then. Oh, fuck, I spilled cheese. Alright. In typical I listen to blank so you don't have to fashion, let's rank these suckers. This once again felt like choosing a favorite child, so if your favorite child isn't my favorite child, I'm sorry. Number 7, regional at best. Yeah, it's down here. It almost felt wrong putting it down here, but for the sake of listening quality and listening convenience, I end up with a better experience from any other album. Forest and Clear, slap. I'm going to be listening to these pretty much as soon as I finish recording this video. So, yeah. Number 6, Scaled and Icy. This one shouldn't come as a surprise to everyone based on my review of this. Again, if you love Scaled and Icy, if that's your ride or die, you to you. I'm so happy for you. For me, Shy Away and Formidable are the only two things keeping it out of number 7. Number 5, Blurryface. Going into this video, I didn't imagine Blurryface would rank so low, but the lows on this record are pretty unbearable. That being said, I do have to give it props for paving the way to international stardom for 21 Pilots, as we now know them to have. So, its influence cannot be understated. Number 4, Self-Titled. Self-Titled is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Not many bands can say they have a debut record as strong as this one, and it's safe to say I'll be throwing myself back into this record pretty soon. I'm nowhere near done getting engrossed with Self-Titled. Number 3, Trench. We've now moved on from good records to great records, and even still, it feels weird putting Trench all the way down at 3, seeing as it used to have number 1. I do think that number 2 and number 1 on this list are more consistent picks than Trench, but Trench still has some of my favorite vocals and performances across any 21 Pilots record, and it's always gonna have a pretty fond spot in my heart, no matter what. Like, no one's gonna make me hate Trench. Number 2, Vessel. To nobody's surprise at all, Vessel is in the top 2. Yeah, everyone and their mom knew that was gonna fucking happen, Dalton. Jokes aside, Vessel is consistent, Vessel is impactful, and it cemented Tyler and Josh as a group that was here to stay. And number 1, Clancy. Clancy was my album of the year in 2024, but it goes deeper than that. I don't think there's a single skip on this record, and it throws us back into this lore, this amazing world that they created. Now that should be celebrated. Whenever I think of music communities, I always think of 21 Pilots. They're the first thing that comes to my mind. Over nearly 20 years, this band has cultivated such a strong sense of community with their fans. I don't think I've ever been to a concert where I've seen so many people dressed up as the artists or as things from that artist's world. People dressed up as Clancy, as Banditos, as Bishops. Hell, there's a guy at my show dressed up as the proctologist from Lavish. It always warms my heart to see members of the clique sharing their love for the band, taking guesses of what artists are going to be on Blurryface 10, or forming new bonds with one another. Clickies, keep on being authentically, unapologetically you. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and for supporting the other ones too. I know my channel is pretty small in the grand scheme of things, but seeing so much support on this series over the last few months has been really heartwarming. I've got some exciting content in the pipeline, so I hope you all stick around for the ride. The next episode in this series is going to be taking place in July, and it's going to be determined by you, the viewers, during my 24-hour charity stream next month. So I hope you'll join me for that. Otherwise, Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey man, it's okay. Don't lose your head.